So for the past few months, Gearbox has made it clear that they've been working on balance changes for Secrets of the Storm, but they haven't really had anything to show for it. Until today, that is. Just earlier today, they've actually released a new patch addressing some bugs and also shared a roadmap for some of the changes they plan to make. I'm not going to go too in-depth about the bugs the patch today fixed. Disputed Origin already has a great video that breaks everything down for anyone who's interested. But the most notable fix from this patch is the elite costs finally being fixed. Yes, dude. This bug was one of the main factors that drove people away from Risk of Rain 2, so it's nice to see that it's finally fixed. Me, personally, I have not been able to play this game without mods that fix this bug, so let's go. Anyways, I want to shift the focus of the rest of this video onto the DLC roadmap they showed, share my thoughts on the changes they're planning, and also point out some stuff you maybe might have missed. First off, we have Phase 1, where they plan on rebalancing the items and the new elites. Thank goodness. I'm glad they decided to make these their #1 priority because, in my eyes at the very least, these are the most impactful things towards the gameplay loop at the moment. For items, they show this little tier list here where they gave a bit of insight on their views of how much an item needs to change. And honestly, I kind of agree with the placement of almost everything on here. I'm kind of a fan of the items above the significant changes tier, so I'm glad to see those aren't going to be changed too much. There is one thing I don't really agree with on here though, that being Runic Lens. I also kind of liked how this item works. And for anyone still confused on what this item does, and it's totally fair if you are still confused. I mean, overspill? What? Basically what overspill means is that the higher the damage you do means the higher chance Runic Lens will pop, and also the higher damage Runic Lens will do. Yeah, this item is pretty good. So I'm honestly a little let down to see that it's getting changed significantly. My only real complaint for the item is its homing and lack of visual cue because half the time I use it, I don't even know it's activating. But it is worth noting that this list is just their initial thoughts, it's not the final list, and positions on it are prone to change. Now, we actually do have a bit of insight on 2 of the items that are being fully reworked. In their devlog, they showed the change to Antler Shield, making it another speed item, and the devlog actually does show this in action to an extent. In this frame here, you can see like these little antler orbs on the ground. Yeah, I am really glad they're taking this direction. The Survivors of the Void DLC originally added a lot of items as well, but were able to successfully combat dilution of the item pool by adding items that increase speed and damage. Which means even though a lot of new items were added, that did not make gathering important stuff like speed and damage any harder. So I'm glad they're taking the same approach now with Secrets of the Storm. Another item we have a bit of insight to is the Knockback fin. Nothing about it was outright stated yet, but in this portion of the devlog, we can see a little debuff icon on this parent here, which means another item that synergizes with Deathmark. Very nice. I'm hoping this debuff is good enough to be impactful in the run in the same way Bleed and Chronobauble are. For elites, they are completely reworking both Twisted Elites and Gilded Elites. Thank God. I mean, just look at the amount of people that downloaded this mod. Anyways, for Twisted Elites, instead of having attacks you do be instantly reflected back, they will instead cause a projectile from these elites to be charged up before being hurled at you. This is a significantly better design choice. Holy crap. I just hope the tracking on the projectile isn't too insane. Like, dealing with a child's projectile isn't too bad, but dealing with like 20 of them, let's just say I wouldn't blame you if your run ended. So I hope the new projectile doesn't end up being quite at that level. Also, just one more thing about the new Twisted Elites. I kinda disagree with their statement about focus firing a single enemy being compelling. I don't know, this might just be my controversial opinion, but I kinda like this current system of enemy prioritization where you pick your own battles. Do you solely focus this teleporter boss, or do you sacrifice some time from shooting the boss and look away for a bit to take out these wisps instead? You know, that kind of thing. I feel like taking away that sort of choice is not a principle I personally agree with. But then again, maybe I'm just overreacting. The new projectile doesn't even look that hard to dodge. I don't know. Anyways, for Gilded Elites, they're completely reworking the gold ceiling mechanic and, more importantly, nerfing their health. Yes! Yes! Gilded Elites currently have 6 times the health of a normal enemy, and also gain armor based on the amount of gold they absorb, which can very easily lead to them being a freaking tank. If you have a bleed build or you're playing aggro, you were pretty much screwed, so thankfully they're gonna end up changing this. Very happy about that. Now on to phase 2 of the roadmap, which covers the False Sun boss fight. Overall, I really agree with the changes they plan to make. These are great changes. I mean, as much as I enjoyed False Sun instantly dashing up to you, which was such an insane display of aura, it's like, holy shit, this guy means business. But as fun as it was seeing that, actually fighting against it from a gameplay perspective, it's very obvious why this is not a good thing. I'd like to see when I should dodge, personally, so I'm glad they're deciding to make his abilities more clear. Also, allowing for better counterplay against his laser is good. Having to deal with that laser currently is probably the most egregious part of the fight, in my opinion. Very nice that they're going to tweak that. And one last thing before I cover the next phase. They also very briefly mentioned that they were going to tweak the Scorchworms and Halcyon as well during this phase. I'm honestly glad they're making changes to the Scorchworms because waiting 10 years for these little cockroaches to pop out of the ground actually makes my blood boil more than a man wearing 12 layers of clothes in the Sahara Desert. Ignorant, brain-dead little Phase 3 of the roadmap entails the changes they plan to make for the new survivors. Chef buffs, let's freaking go, dude. Chef's primary and secondary currently are actually in such a sad state, so I'm glad to see Gearbox is aware of this and plan to drastically change them. Dice on its own isn't that bad, it's just the fact that it has a limited amount with a cooldown and a low proc coefficient. I really hope they change it to where you can just spam it, similar to how it is in Risk of Rain Returns. Same with Seer, but it looks like they're not quite going in that direction, which is fine I guess. The main problem with Seer was its very long, uninterruptible animation, which doesn't even do much damage for such a notable downside to begin with. So as long as they address that, I will be very happy, and it looks like they're at least starting to address it based on this footage we have here. For False Sun, I'm a little surprised to see they are changing all of his abilities. In my opinion, his kit felt pretty fun aside from a couple polish issues, and I'm not the only one who shares this sentiment. My guess is that most of the changes are gonna affect mostly the visuals, which is good. It's the one thing I feel is a little clunky about him. I'm just surprised to see more of the focus for False Sun's changes is on the laser of the father, because for me at least, that ability already looks and feels insane. But hey, if they plan on improving it further, I'm sure as hell not complaining. What I really want to see change though is his alt special, Laser Burst. That ability is just so underwhelming from all standpoints, and especially pales in comparison to Laser of the Father. In terms of damage, animation, and just overall feel, it does not even compare to Laser of the Father, so I really hope that gets changed as well. Seeker's changes are much more specific, affecting mainly how Tranquility works, and I am glad they are changing this because so far all you're ever really doing with this ability is charging it up 7 times for the buffs and then never using it again. Or I guess in multiplayer you're sometimes charging it up 6 times and waiting to use it a 7th time for the resurrection. It just doesn't offer that much outside of those 2 uses. This might be a hot take, but I think after getting Max Tranquility, this ability should do dummy big damage, similar to the likes of a fully charged Loader Punch, because let's be real, even though some of us are pretty good at Helldiver inputs, it's still a pretty big commitment to use this ability that forces you to keep still for the duration of it, to the point where in its current form it's just not worth using after getting the buffs. So I'm really hoping this ability in particular gets significantly changed in a way that makes it fun and interactive, something you'd want to use more than 7 times a stage. Well, that's the entire roadmap covered. Overall, I am a big fan of the changes Gearbox is making. I definitely think they are taking steps in the right direction. It's very cool how they're listening to community feedback and actively interacting with us to get a better grasp for balance. Also, I haven't really mentioned this anywhere in the video, but it looks like they've hired John back, John being the community manager. Probably one of the best decisions Gearbox could make. He's shown to be very good at his job. Yeah, I'm feeling very optimistic about this. I really hope they continue to keep this up. So far, it seems like they're on the right track in making things right. Anyways, that's all I've got to say. If you enjoyed this video, maybe show it a little. I mean, you made it to the end, you probably liked the video, so why not show it by leaving a like? Maybe sub? maybe sub. Alright, that's it from me. See ya.